This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Hi friends, I'm Carrie Jo, and this is Holy Chuckles Podcast. This is a space for honest faith, lived experiences, and shining a light in the places we've learned to hide. I'm not here to explain faith. I'm here to live it out loud. So take a breath and let's make room for what's real. Welcome back to Holy Chuckles Podcast. I'm really glad you're here. I'm still in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 35. When God tells Eli, I will raise up for myself a faithful priest who will do according to what's in my heart and mind. What's according to in my heart and mind? Alignment. We could even remove the word priest. God saying to you, because I know it was God saying to me, I will raise up for myself a faithful person who will do according to what's in my heart and mind. God said to be aligned with me, you have to do what's in my heart and mind. I think about that, and I didn't realize in my previous life how much I wasn't doing according to what God's heart and mind is. Yeah, being a nice person is great. Showing love is great. Being kind is great, but that's not everything. And I realized that this week as God has been teaching me about patience. God has been teaching me how to wait. God has been teaching me how to just do the things that I can do and let God handle what God is supposed to handle. That has been a very hard lesson for me. And it hasn't been easy. I realized that in my previous life, my patience was pretty much zero. If it wasn't done in the time that I wanted it or needed it, I would just do it myself. Sometimes I didn't even have the patience to teach someone how to do something so they can do it correctly and how I needed or wanted it. So I would just do it. And doing it that way created more stress for me. Me doing everything didn't create peace and harmony in my life. It created stress. It created chaos. It created harm to my nervous system. As I've been healing my nervous system, I can see where I have calmed down a lot in that. But God's been showing me this week that I have more work to do. Because although, yes, I'm better than I was, I still had some issues. And doing what is according to God's heart and mind is living your life like God would, like Christ did. And that means having the ability to be patient, having the ability to wait, having the ability to sit still and let things just happen as they should. Understanding this alone helped me understand the magnitude of God's greatness. Can you imagine, just for a moment, being God? Having to deal with all of us, every single person on this planet. Think about how many people you deal with in your life, at your work, in your family, in your friend group, how many personalities you deal with, how many emotions you have to deal with, how you have to juggle everyone and how each person is different and dealing with them. And your circle is small. Can you imagine being God and dealing with everybody? How much patience God has to deal with every single one of us. I think how much patience God has to have just to deal with me alone. I felt like my mom was a saint dealing with me as a child. And how much strength it takes when God just has to sit and leave us alone because that's what we wanted. And God can see everything, and God looking down going, ah, don't do that. Please don't do that. It's going to cause you a lot of grief. It's going to cause you a lot of stress. It's going to cause you a lot of chaos. And then we do it, and God's like, man, well, I just got to sit here and wait until they call on me because there's nothing that I can do until then. That takes strength because I realized this week in some of the things that I've been going through, how much I did not set back and wait, how much I didn't use patience to my advantage. I would try to push, try to fix, try to make sure everything was perfect or that it was going to go the way that I thought it should go. All I did was create strife and chaos in my life. In my last episode, I said that I was packing up boxes to move, and I still have no idea where I'm going. And I'm still packing up boxes. And I have some items that are for sale. They're clunky, they're big, I don't need them. And I put them online for sale. I would walk by them, and one day I said, God, please, can we get this crap out of here? It's in my way. It's bulky. I need to get rid of it. It would make me feel better if it was gone. It would make me feel like something is moving forward. Can I just get this crap out of here? A couple of days later, I received an offer on the stuff, and it was way lower than what I had put it online for. And I countered. And then they came back and countered again, and it was still pretty low. And at the beginning of this week, I was walking by the items again, and I said, God, can we please just get this crap out of here? It's bulky, it's in the way. If I could get rid of it, I could feel like I'm moving forward. And I heard, I gave you your person, but it wasn't good enough. And I was like, wait, what? Wait a minute. What? And I'm having this conversation with God, and I'm like, yeah, I did have a person, but it was way lower than what I had asked for online. God said, but you weren't specific. When God said, you said, in his big God hands with quotation marks, God, can we get this stuff out of here? It's big, it's bulky. I want it out of here. God's like, is that not what you said? At any time, did you specifically say, God, I need this specific amount for the items that I'm selling? No, you said, God, I want this crap out of here. And I gave you that. And instead of going with it, it wasn't good enough. And you decided that you were going to wait. So now you have to wait. I know I crossed my arms, shook my head, and was like, God, you're right. You're right. You're right. Because in my thought process before, I was just going to set the stuff out by the dumpster and get $0 for it. Now I had someone who was going to pay me for it and come get it, and it was going to be out of my apartment. But that blessing wasn't good enough for me. So I had to do what I didn't want to do, but I went ahead and did it, which was eat crow and send a message to the person that had made the offer and say, hey, do you still want the items? I'll go ahead and take it for the price that you offered. And they replied, well, we've already spent a little of the money that we had set aside for that. So we can only offer this. And it was about $30 less. Previously, I would have to get that lesson 22 times before I would get it. Now in my life, I don't have to have that lesson more than once. No, thank you. I understand it. So I told them, it's yours. Come get it. The person said, I need to wait till someone can come help me. Unfortunately, they couldn't come that evening. So we made a plan for them to be here the next day. Later in that day, I sent a text and said, hey, just want to make sure we're still on for you guys coming to pick up the items today. That person responded, yes, it'll be later tonight. Great. I'll see you later tonight. Here's my address. Text me when you're on the way so I can make sure to meet you downstairs so I can walk you up. That night, never heard from them. They didn't come pick up the items. And that was a lesson for me because had I accepted their offer to begin with, when they were in that moment to get everything done, these items would probably be out of my apartment by now. But because I wanted to control the situation, not thinking, oh, you were just going to set them by the dumpster and accept nothing for them. And now you have an offer that is more than zero. It wasn't good enough. And God had to teach me what's in our best interest. What do we really need right now? And what I really needed and what I really asked for and what I said to God was, I really need this stuff out of my apartment. I need it moved out. So in my mind, I can see that I'm moving forward. And this stuff just being here is making me feel stagnant. I didn't say anything to God about dollar bills. I said about the items being removed. Now I still have the stuff in my apartment because for whatever reason, the people didn't come and get it. And that's another lesson for me in patience and in waiting. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know if they had an emergency, but I know in my previous life, I would have texted ad nauseum. Where are you? You thought you were coming. I thought you were going to pick up this stuff. But instead, I just let it go. Because whatever happens is going to happen. I did my part. I did my part. I went back and I said, hey, listen, if you still want it, it's here. I accepted less than, and I was okay with that. And I waited for them to come and pick it up, and they never showed. That's not my part. I can't do anything about that. So now I'm at square one again. I said to God, I just want this stuff out of my apartment. And now I understand what you're saying. Now I understand what I'm asking for. Because maybe before I was a little confused. I went back into my old ways of trying to control the situation, trying to make it something that it wasn't, trying to make it more than what it should have been, which is I need these items gone. They don't mean anything to me. Looking at them keeps me stuck in a place I don't want to be at. I want them gone. I understand what I did. I understand what I didn't do. And now I've learned from that lesson. And I'm right back to here waiting. But I can tell you, when an offer is made on it again, I will not make that same mistake. I thought being patient in my life was just being kind to others when they couldn't do something as fast as I could. Being kind to others when they didn't move as quickly as I did in some ways. I didn't realize that being patient was just sitting still. And this has been one of my hardest lessons, but it's a lesson that I've needed to learn, that I've had to learn. And I didn't realize that patience was also strength. Can you imagine how much patience God has with each and every one of us individually, and how much patience God has to have to deal with all of us together? I thought my mom was a saint when I was growing up for the amount of patience that she had to deal with me as a child. That was strength because I was a mischievous, naughty kid. The things I got myself into and the grace that she handled it with. I think of myself as an adult. The grace and strength and patience God had with me, that God has with everyone. Just understanding that, understanding how much strength it takes to sit back and do nothing allows me to understand the magnificence that God is. Because God has to allow us to do the things in our lives that we want to do. Even though God is going, don't do it. Please don't do it. The chaos you are fixing to cause, don't do it. And then we do it. God shakes his head. God's like, well, we're going to have to clean that up later. I know in my own life, that's what God was doing. I know God on many occasions threw his head back and was like, oh, Carrie Joe, no, no, no. And then he would just write on his Carrie Joe list the items we're going to have to clean up. You know, like when you're doing home improvement and you have a list of all the things that you want to fix. God has a list for every single one of us of all the things, all the chaos we've created, and all the things that we're going to have to go back and fix with God. And one of them on my list was patience. This is a hard lesson for me. Just the waiting in this waiting to move forward in my life, but knowing I'm sitting here because I have to learn this lesson, and it is driving me mad because I think, God, I'm patient. God, look at all the things that I have changed. God, look at where I've grown. And God's like, yes, yes, yes to all of that. And you have done beautiful and you are doing amazing. But it doesn't negate the lessons that still need to be learned. It's kind of like when you're playing a board game and you have to hit a certain number or a certain color to move forward. You're sitting there forever waiting, and that roll on that dice never produces that number. That color never comes up in the cards that you choose. And you're like, oh my God, please just give me that number or that color so I can move forward in this game. And God's like, it'll come. Be patient. It'll come. Just sit still. And in this setting still, I've learned this is the hardest place in my life that I've been, because I have wanted to act fast, fix it, control it, secure it, not let things hang. But sometimes those things can't happen. Sometimes you can't act fast. You can't fix it. You can't control it. You can't secure it. And you have to let it hang. That's what I'm learning right now. Just to do what's right in front of me and do nothing else. Pack my boxes. Keep answering questions on the items that I want to sell. And keep being patient. Patient for the next step God has secured for me. And I think that is probably one of the hardest things, not knowing what's secured, not knowing what's next, not being able to see over the hill so I can see what's coming next. Just being here waiting, going, okay, God, I know you're doing what is best for me. And I know that I can't see it, so I'm just going to have faith that it's exactly what it's supposed to be. And for someone who has controlled their life for so long, that is a very hard place to be. But this is where I really am putting my faith in the things that I am saying, the things that I'm doing, and the things that I'm believing. And I'm putting my faith in knowing that God has my best interest in mind. And I have to keep reminding myself, turn around and look what you did, and look at the chaos that was created when you tried to control everything. Look at the chaos that was created when you didn't just sit and wait and have patience, when you didn't just have the strength to sit still for a moment while things settled down. And I am my best example of what not to do. I am my best example of what happens when patience is not a virtue. And although waiting, being in this waiting room, this hold pattern, when my brain is saying we should be doing something, when my body is saying let's move forward, when my old patterns want to solve it. But right now, my job is to wait. My job is being here, operating from alignment and not urgency. Because God didn't bring me this far to drop me off. But throughout our life, there are lessons that we have to learn. And this is a big lesson for me. If I want to be a faithful person who does according to what is God's heart and mind, then part of that heart and mind is strength. And part of that strength is patience. And part of that patience is waiting. And part of that waiting is not knowing, but just sitting still. And even though this is hard for me, it's not impossible. Whereas 10 years ago, I would have thought this was impossible. Not having a job, not having a place to live, not having money in my bank account. I would have thought doing this would be impossible. And I would have tried to solve it by finding a job quickly, even if it was a job I hated. I would have tried to solve it by figuring out where I'm going to live. But God's not calling me to do that. God's calling me to do exactly what I'm doing, which is sending out my resumes, packing boxes, having faith that God has me through every single part of this, even if it is in the last minute. I never thought in my entire life I could have this much faith. And in my past, I thought being strong was stuffing everything down and just keeping it moving, keeping one foot in front of the other and moving forward. But this week, God is showing me that strength is in the understanding that if we work together with God, if we allow ourselves to do exactly what we can do in that moment, and we leave the rest up to God, that everything will work out in the best way that it can. Because the only thing that God wants for us is the absolute best. God doesn't want us to be stressed. God doesn't want us to be hurt. God doesn't want us to suffer. God wants us to have an easy life. God wants us to have a life full of love, laughter, and joy. God wants us to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. But the only way that we can do that is to live our life with God according to God's heart and mind, not ours, not society's, not the people around us. God wants to live the best possible experience with you, not against you and not for you, but with you. And the only way to do that is for you to do the things that are right in front of you, the things that you can handle, and allow God to take care of the rest.